That makes you want to come on Easter, doesn't it? 7 weeks away and we're already excited. Dennis Lee Curtis was an armed robber who was arrested in 1992 in Rapid City, South Dakota. It actually turns out that Curtis was a scrupulous robber. In his wallet, the police found a sheet of paper on which was written the following code of ethics. Number 1, I will not kill anyone unless I have to. Number 2, I will take cash and food stamps, no checks. I'm serious, this was in his wallet. Number 3, I will only rob people at night. Number 4, I will not wear a mask. Number 5, I will not rob mini-marts or 7-Eleven stores. Number 6, if I get chased by the cops on foot, I will get away. But if I'm chased by a vehicle, I will not put the lives of innocent civilians on the line. Number 7, I will only rob people 7 months of the year. And number 8, and the final, I will enjoy robbing from the rich to give to the poor. These were the thief's ethical rules for his unethical behavior. And perhaps to his surprise, when he stood before the court, he was not judged by the standards he had written out and put in his billfold. Instead, he was judged by the laws of the state of South Dakota. Now, I taught Christian ethics at Newman for a number of years, and most of my students were young adults who were somewhat idealistic. Many of them had strong ideas about what was right and what was wrong, and frankly, they were judgmental about those who broke the rules. They said that they believed in the 10 Commandments as the ultimate system of morality. But when I pushed them with a variety of real-life scenarios with conflicting questions of morality, some of them were quick to fold. And they really didn't have the best system to discern what the best choice would be. Part of their final exam was to outline their ethical system and how it worked in times of crisis. I was always surprised by those who went back to the 10 Commandments and said those were their ultimate rules of morality, even though I had shown them over and over through the course of the semester that they couldn't choose between right and wrong by just using those 10 commandments. You know, most Western people, I think, have a vague understanding, at the very least, of these ancient Hebrew code, commonly called the 10 Commandments. And what we may not realize is that the Hebrew Bible has many, many, many commandments, not only 10. So I'm going to ask you to guess how many commandments there are in the Hebrew Bible. More than 100. More than 200. More than 300. More than 400. More than 500. Some of you are going like, not more than 200, but now 500, yeah. Okay. There are at least 613 commandments according to Jewish teaching. So when you talk about the 10, you're only talking about a very few of the commandments in the Hebrew Bible. There's such emphasis on the commonly known 10 commandments that we have etched them in stone and placed them in important places, and some people say they're the best moral code that we have. Now, the Vegas and television magician Penn Jillette, do you know him? He offered, as an atheist, his 10 suggestions from his point of view. And they're side by side with the commandments from Exodus in your bulletin for you to compare if you can read the small print, because it had to be small to get it all in. Jillette clearly used the 10 Commandments as his guide for his own 10 suggestions, since most of them echo the sentiment of the Hebrew Bible. For example, pretty much the same on both lists are honor your parents, don't kill, don't cheat, don't lie. They're basically the same on both lists. But Gillette also made his focus, and this is important, more individualistic than the Bible's more social rules. Penn's major concern is, how should I behave in order to do right by myself and the people in my close circle? The Bible's concern is, what will ensure a successful society? Remember, too, that biblical authors lived in a pre-scientific time. They had no words for nature, so they said God. Modern people think of the ultimate reality as consisting of the material universe and its laws. But the ancients thought of the ultimate reality as being this enormous person living in the sky. So I did an unscientific poll on Facebook this week to see what you and others might claim as the ultimate moral code. And I received some really great answers. If you're on Facebook, you can go to my page and look for all, I think there were 40-some answers. Among them were, as you might suspect, do unto others, or treat others as you want to be treated, love God and neighbor, live life with honesty, integrity, compassion, respect, forgiveness, and love, do no harm, seeking goodness equals seeking God. If I err, I hope to always err on the side of grace. I liked that one. The place to improve the world is first in one's own heart and head and hands, and then work outward from there. And then my two smart aleck sons, unbeknownst to me, had a dare to put this one on my Facebook wall. And one of them did. It said, "Get rich or die trying." I later found out that it was a dare. And he redeemed himself with the next one, which was, "Be who your dog thinks you are." And I like that one too. Moral codes, I taught my kids well. So let's take another look at those well-known commandments one at a time. And I'm using as a reference another article from the Jesus Seminar magazine, The Fourth R. The article was written by Richard Trudeau, and it gives some context for each of these commandments. I'm also evaluating the commandments within their context of other Hebrew and Christian writings to try to understand their essence and their meaning. So the first one, I've paraphrased, "Have no other gods before me." Now, did any of you memorize the 10 Commandments when you were kids? Oh, a lot of you. Okay. And did you memorize the long version or the short version? The short one? I got $10 for the long version. I'm just saying. 3rd grade. I rocked it. Okay, so the text from Exodus is represented as having been spoken by Yahweh. What you may not realize is that Israel at that time, when the commandments were written, was not yet a monotheistic organization. What's interesting, you know, monotheistic, one God. They had multiple gods. So this commandment in their context of that time isn't that Yahweh is claiming to be the only God, just that Israel was trying to treat Yahweh as second to none. About the 6th century BCE, when Israel did limit itself to just one God, this commandment began to be understood as God's absolute uniqueness. So originally, this was just, don't have other gods that are as high up in your priority as Yahweh. The second one, don't make any idols. Now, the wisdom of this commandment is that it declares all images of God, physical or otherwise, to be wrong. If we imagine God as a person with human traits, we are wrong. God is unimaginable. And this is the reason that I talked about last week about whether or not there is a real God. I suggested that experience is how we best know God, because whatever we think about with our brains, we fall short of the totality of what the ultimate holiness is. When we experience it in our lives, we know God in our very souls. Third one, don't take God's name in vain. Now, so many people simplify this commandment and talk about cursing. Originally, the commandment had a totally another meaning. In ancient times, the name of God was thought to have magical power. This commandment reminds us not to treat God as a magician, to give me this or heal this from me or give me that, God. To ask for supernatural intervention in our lives from God is actually to take God's name in vain. It's totally different than what we've been taught, right? So don't take God's name in vain actually means don't pray, heal me from this, give me that. Interesting. Next commandment, keep God's day holy. Oh my. People have been second-guessing this commandment for millenniums. This really isn't about taking time away from work or spending all day honoring God. Those might be very good ideas, but they're not the essence of this command. According to Trudeau, anyway, he notes that the first English version of these commandments was Shakespearean. And what was translated here as a command to keep the Sabbath day was to keep it whole, W-H-O-L-E. And to keep this day whole means to keep it uncontaminated by the way we spend our other 6 days of the week. It's a day of recreation. It's a day of putting back together that which has been fractured during the week. It's a day of bringing life back into our world. It's about celebrating the wholeness that God intends for us. In other biblical texts, the principle of Sabbath includes putting back to rightness financial debts, giving land back to its original owners, including people who have been excluded from society, and so on. So this is about wholeness. We're to be redistributors, wholeness makers for ourselves and society. So keeping the Sabbath day holy means to put back right relationship. Honor your parents. Now, this was an essential command to the ancient system. People's very lives depended on how their families treated them. The oldest generation was dependent physically and socially and financially on their younger family members because there were no social institution. Believe it or not, ancient Israel did not have Meals on Wheels, senior services, Larksfield Nursing Center, hospitals, and so on. And so that's why this commandment ends with the phrase, so that their days may be long upon the earth which the Lord gave them. So many people today who have difficult relationships with their family members feel guilt when they hear this commandment. It really isn't honoring parents who hurt you. It's a social agreement to prevent the elderly from becoming a burden to society. So again, the Bible's emphasis here is on social obligation, not necessarily on individualistic obligation. Next, don't kill. Well, duh. I mean, that's a universal idea, except for a few exceptions. In other places, the Bible writings allow killing, but only to protect oneself or one's family. It also allows killing where there is a war that is just. When I was growing up, my mom taught me do not kill was not only about not taking someone's physical life. She said it was wrong to kill a person's will to live. She probably taught me this when I was a teenage girl and needed it the most. Don't take away someone's dignity. Don't take away someone's reputation. Don't take away someone's determination. Don't take away somebody's purpose. Don't kill someone's hope. Don't cheat on your spouse. The Bible is against breaking promises in general. And this one is more specific because it focuses on the most likely thing to tear apart the fabric of society. Breaking a promise usually has a victim. Breaking your promise to your spouse sets at least two families at odds, and it hurts multiple people in the most sensitive and cruel way. You could also say this command has at its root, don't rip apart and destroy trust with those closest to you. Don't steal. Again, duh. Again, it's a universal truth. The Bible includes this command because stealing tears away the fabric of society. I know people who would never think of snatching an elderly woman's purse, but they don't mind tricking the government at all or their insurance company. No name, no face, who will it hurt? Someone who works occasionally at our own home wanted to get paid in cash. She isn't in need. She isn't without documentation. She is actually a flag-waving American citizen. She just doesn't want to pay taxes. Stealing tears the fabric of society apart. So this isn't about taking someone's personal property. This is about how you handle your property and others' property with respect. Okay. Next one, don't give false testimony. Often this commandment is translated as don't lie, but interestingly enough, it's not the correct understanding of this commandment, because this commandment doesn't prohibit all lying. False testimony is different from lying because false testimony is a social issue. For example, in a court of law or by way of gossip. So as far as the Bible is concerned, it's okay to say, "Oh, what a beautiful baby," when you're looking at someone's really homely kid. Because that commandment, this commandment's specific to the kind of talk we use in regard to our neighbors. When we use words to degrade or hurt or lie about another person, we're breaking this command. When we say judgmental things that are hurtful to others and mean to demean them or exclude them, we're breaking this command. We're at 10. It's almost time for coffee. Don't covet anything that belongs to your neighbor. Now, this may be the simplest and also the most difficult of the commands. Don't wish to have what you don't. To do so disrupts the harmony of your neighborhood. Comparing what we have to what someone else has is not a productive use of time. You know that saying, the grass is always greener? Well, this command gets at that truth. What is not ours should not be our concern. Dog trainers teach us that the dog kennel or the crate is not to be used for punishment. Well, a dog will consider his crate to be the safest place in the house, a place of quiet and peace. And a trained dog will not mess up his crate for the life of him, like use it as a bathroom or tear up its contents, because it has become his holy place. It strikes me that the 10 Commandments tell us this very same truth. Don't mess up your world or the people in it. This is a place to be enjoyed. These people are holy. This creation is lovely. When you mess up with your relationship with your neighbors, when you mess up your surroundings, you destroy your own best life. And treat what is holy, well, holy and sacred. I hope you've enjoyed this trek down the 10 Commandments of the Hebrew Bible. Remember, next week we're going to do the other 503. No, not really. Next week we start Lent, and we're going to start talking about those wonderful movies. And I can't say enough about coming on Wednesday nights to see these movies in their whole, so that we can talk about the depth of meaning that they come to. And especially when we get to Jesus of Montreal. Has anyone seen that movie? Jesus of Montreal? Oh, then you all have to come that Wednesday. One of my favorite movies. It's a 30-year-old Canadian movie. It's in French and has subtitles, which Eric will say, then I'm not coming. But it is a wonderful story, and it's a new take on the passion of Jesus. So anyway, I hope you will come to all of them and then come on Sundays to hear more about the theology as presented by artists.